Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Waking Up with Flyer and Ice, a weekly review. First off, Happy New Year. And as always, thank you for spending your morning with us. We are brought to you by the Heat Ratio Sports Network. Please subscribe, tap that bell on YouTube to get all notifications. And I'm excited to say that this Tuesday at Steam Pub in Southampton, PA, we will be doing our first big live event. The whole Heat Ratio crew will be at Steam. It'll be an amazing event. Come on. Please share with your friends. Check us out on all podcasting platforms. I think I got all my spiel in. Ladies and gentlemen, with me tonight is the great Jim Icavone of High and White Hockey. Jim, thank you so much for joining us. It's been long overdue. Please tell our viewers about yourself, your crew, and where they can find you.
Yeah, Dan, first off, thanks for having me on, man. That intro, I got goosebumps. I'm pumped up. I'm ready to go outside and play, man. Wow. I'm stoked to be on your show. We've been talking about it for a couple of weeks. Dude, I'm excited. You can find all of our stuff at hwhockey.net. If you want to give us a follow on Twitter, on Instagram, whatever, at FlyersHW. A lot of great content. If you're into fantasy or gambling, we have a guy, Dave Lanner, puts out a lot of great stuff there. We have a bunch of shows for you guys to listen to. And yeah, man, just really grateful to finally get on and hang out with you.
Yeah, I have the mindset, and I've told this to many people. I'm in an age where this is just pure fun for me. I'm not in it to be the best hockey podcast in the world. I just find people that I like, and I want them on my show. Exactly. Yourself, Zach Kinderchuk, just good people in the industry that have good products, and then you could just tell they're good people. That's all I care about in this industry. It's not, I
appreciate that. It's nice. No. That's nice of you to say. I appreciate that.
No, I've really enjoyed your work, and it's about time we hooked up.
Likewise. Yes.
All right, so before we address the 3 interesting games this week post hiatus, with the hiatus in mind, the COVID again is real. You and I had a little pre-show discussion about it. What are your thoughts on this whole COVID issue moving forward, and what you think the rest of the year could look like?
Well, it kind of sucked, right? Like December was a washed month for a lot of NHL clubs. You're seeing the Flyers kind of go through some things again with Carter Hart, Brassard, and
Law
and all returning. Yeah. I think they should be back for Tuesday. And Couturier is out now with an upper body, so that's interesting. But you're seeing it affect the team, and I think the league. I have to go back and double check. I think they're going to start to follow what the NFL's doing, and the CDC came out and said, it's just interesting. It's kind of a mess a little bit, like I don't know. There's a lot, right? Because you don't want to spread the infection, because that's the main thing, right? You don't want to infect people, right? We're trying to slow this down. So I get what they're doing. At the same time, I don't know, if you're healthy, if you don't have symptoms, you should be able to play. It doesn't make sense for you to miss games. That's how I see this whole thing. It's just kind of messy. It's just nobody really knows what to do, and everything's kind of on the fly. How about you?
No, I'm in the same dilemma. I'll be forthright. I've been at the tail end of it myself right now. I'm starting to finally feel better. You had mentioned that you had it not long ago yourself. So at first I was thinking, listen, I'm very vigilant. I always wear a mask. I teach. I'm wearing a mask all the time. Since break started, I really hadn't done anything. And then boom, I just started not to feel well. And at first I was thinking, oh, these athletes, they're not taking it seriously. They're going out to the clubs and inevitably they're going to get it. But now, after realizing that I did absolutely nothing to really get it, it's obviously this Omicron variant is extremely strong. So now my thinking is, if Dan Green gets it and is asymptomatic and I'm feeling healthy, and then I get on the ice with you, my teammate, who's maybe it just hits you differently. And maybe even though I feel healthy and I'm carrying it, maybe if I give it to you, you won't feel healthy while carrying it.
Yeah.
So that's my concern. It might not affect everyone the same way. So I don't think there is a right or wrong. I just don't think anyone really knows how to handle this. So it just should be interesting. It's just crazy.
I mean, so it's weird because you have one side that's like, man, why are you postponing games? Why are healthy people who are just testing positive not playing? And then you have the other side that's like, we're still in a pandemic, right? Whether you agree that we're in the middle or coming to the end, it's still a pandemic. You don't want to infect more people and prolong anything. So just cut the games. You have that time where the Olympics are going to be played, reschedule them for then, and take the time off. And I got to be honest with you, as much as I'm in the boat of healthy people should play, I'm also on the side where it's like, just take a week or two off. Now you have 3 weeks in February where you can reschedule games. Take advantage of that. What's the rush? You're still going to get to May, June. So
that's a conversation I recently had. Now that the Olympics were canceled, you've got all this time to do the right thing, whether it's take a long rest and, like you said, and or you've got built-in time to reschedule games. So they definitely have the luxury that some other leagues do not have.
Yeah, for sure.
So we shall see, but it's a topic that has to be addressed because it's not going to go away anytime soon.
No.
So now let's get to our hockey games. The first game was against the Seattle Krakens. After this mini hiatus we had that we just referenced, they fly out to Seattle, and let's face it, everyone had a mini hiatus, so it wasn't like the Flyers were in their own boat. Were you surprised at how brutally flat they were against Seattle?
I wish I could say yeah, Dan. I really do wish I could say yeah, but with this team, no, I'm not surprised by that. Seattle's at home. In front of their fans, they have a good crowd out there. They seem to be passionate thus far. They're excited to watch their team play. The Flyers are traveling across country. I think they were missing some of their top guys. I mean, obviously Hart, Couturier, Lawton, Brassard, and you have guys like Jerry Mayhew playing a Phantoms player, decent player, but probably not a guy that's going to put you over the top in the NHL. I wasn't surprised by the start. Was I surprised that they looked that bad for that long? Yeah, you would expect them to wake up after a certain point after having all that time off. But overall, no, wasn't really surprised.
No, I would say the same thing. Again, we're on the same page. The surprise that I had was that it really didn't change throughout the game. I thought maybe after the first period. And it goes into my next question. Ultimately, if not for the great play of Jones and a beautiful overtime goal by Provorov, they won a game against a hapless hockey club. So they still captured 2 points in the game, but it just was not a pretty performance. But in professional sports, a win is a win is a win.
See, and I say the same thing. And you know what? I feel like Flyers fans don't want to hear that anymore because they just know, right? Like we're smart fans. We watch the team. We know when they get lucky, and you can only get lucky for so long, as we saw last season. But I'm the same boat as you. Hey, Seattle, I had them potentially making the playoffs this year. I know that sounds kind of crazy now as they're 10-17-4 after the Flyers beat them. But I think overall they have a bunch of solid players on that hockey club. They should have beaten the Flyers, as you said, if not for Martin Jones's play, 34 saves on 36 shots. JVR pots 2 goals, and Provorov in overtime gets the game winner on a pretty nice goal.
That was very nice.
Sometimes that's how it goes, and you'll take the 2 points. Don't dwell on that game. Take the 2 points and run.
And it's really hard to say, and especially since I always reference on our show that when we say, oh, we have so-and-so coming up, it should be an easy win. Well, they say the same thing that we're coming up. You know, we're the league is not stupid. We're the medicine for a lot of teams as well. There are no easy games in the NHL.
No.
It's a very competitive league. I mean, look at the start the Islanders had, and they had a great win against Edmonton yesterday, an exciting game that I watched. So, you know, there are talented teams out there that have poor records. Now, you have teams that are just totally crap in the bed like Montreal, but generally every game is competitive.
Yeah, for sure.
So we move on to the Sharks game where we were absolutely outplayed. But again, to this team's unique, they have a unique character trait that they didn't have last year. They do somehow persevere and show grit. And at the end of the game, with like 3 and change left, Farabee ties it up, forcing the game to overtime, where they went on to lose. But if not, again, we're going to talk about the goalie. If not for Sandstrom's brilliant play, this game should have been a 6-2 regulation loss.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of a stolen point where they were just grossly outplayed and outshot. Talk to me a little about the game and about Felix Sandstrom.
Yeah, so first off, I mean, the second game of a back-to-back, sometimes you might need your goalie to steal you a point. Hopefully two, but at least one. And I was excited to watch Felix Sandstrom. You know, this is a name that we've been hearing about for a couple years now, where he was kind of faltering back and forth in the minors. He couldn't really find his footing down with the Phantoms. And I was happy to see him come up for a game and play the way he did. I would like to see him for another game, if I'm being honest here. Martin Jones is, I think, signed just to the end of the season. I'm not saying that I want to get rid of Jones already, but hey, you have a guy in Felix Sandstrom. Let him get some games in. Let him get his confidence up. And then who knows what you do. But 43 saves on 46 shots against an okay Sharks club. I was impressed with this play. You look at Oscar Lindblom, 2 assists in the game. I think he's kind of finding his game a little bit for the last couple weeks here. I felt bad for him with the whole COVID break there or the holiday break, because he was really turning it on towards the end, and you could noticeably see he was putting himself in the right situations on the ice. All he needed was the scoring chances, and they'll come. Yeah, Farabee, you mentioned, got the goal. Morgan Frost has been impressing me in small spurts. I think we'd all like to see it more consistent from shift to shift, but I think Morgan Frost is showing you that he has the offensive ability that we're hoping see translate on to the NHL. So although it kind of stinks that here we are looking for positives in Flyers games again, instead of, cheering for them to win and whatnot, there are bright spots throughout these games. You just have to be looking for them.
No, I agree. And I think you and I must share the same brain in a lot of ways. Because here's my next question, which you've sort of addressed. See, I have been noticing, and I've been watching Felix Sandstrom from afar. I'm of the mindset that you can't have guys drafted 3, 4, 5 years ago in the top 3 rounds and just never introduce them to the big club. Otherwise, they're wasted draft picks. And why are they on the roster? Trade them for just trade them and get assets from another team.
Sure.
Do something with them.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're wasted draft picks. So I was talking last year with my crew. The Rangers have Shesterkin and Georgiev. Washington have Samsonov and Vanacek as their starting goalies. All goalies under 25 years of age, duos. You could say one is an up-and-coming team. What do they have to lose? And you could say one is a perennial Stanley Cup contender. Oh, my God, 2 young goaltenders. They're doing it.
Yep.
So where I didn't want them to sign Martin Jones. Not that Martin Jones has been fine this year. This is not a knock on Martin Jones whatsoever. Sure. I was blowing the horn of just play Sandstrom and Hart as a young duo. This team, in my opinion, they didn't have Stanley Cup aspirations. Just let's see what we got with these young goaltenders. So if it were me, next year's tandem would be Sandstrom and Jones for sure. I mean, excuse me, Sandstrom and Hart for sure. The kid looks like he's NHL ready finally. And again, part of what you referenced about his up and down play, I think it's a kid being demoralized that he's not getting the chance.
Hey, it could be. And the Phantoms aren't the greatest team in the world either.
Correct. So there's, it goes to what your Frost point. Yeah, Frost is playing well, but he's never going to completely shine unless he has some dynamic line mates to help him shine.
Yeah.
And there aren't dynamic players on this hockey team.
No, I think we have to remember that we have to take the bad with the good. Now, there should be more good than bad, so please don't take me the wrong way, listeners. You have to take the good with the bad with some of these players. And Frost, he's like we mentioned, he's an offensively gifted player that may not be that great on the defensive end. He might not be as physical as you want him to be, but he's gonna produce offensively, and hopefully, same thing with Sandstrom. I mean, I don't have anything to nitpick about his first game. I think he played phenomenal. 43 saves, we said, on 46 shots.
Correct.
You got to get that guy 2 points, man.
Right. Well, and instead of them getting him 2 points, he stole a point for the team.
Absolutely.
All right. So now when you see a trend developing, the dam's eventually going to burst. The Kings game.
Oh, yeah.
It started off literally the first 12 seconds of the game as a foreshadowing what this game is going to look like. Just god-awful defensive zone coverage, losing one-on-one battles, losing puck battles throughout the game. And essentially they were outclassed by the Kings last night in a 6-3 loss, bringing their season goal differential. Now, this is the true telling point. I don't want to hear that they're this amount of points out of the wild card. I don't want to. The bottom line is when you are a minus 21 in goal differential, you're not a good hockey team.
No.
And you're fooling yourself. So that's where they're at right now after the Kings game, minus 21 in goal differential. Talk to me about the Kings game, what you saw.
Yeah, it's not exactly like the Kings are world beaters either over here,
No.
So, you mentioned it. They were scored on 12 seconds into the period. I don't want to say they weren't ready to play, but on the goal, if you remember the wraparound, Ivan Provorov was defending it.
Yep.
It was very soft. It was very, like I said, I don't want to say that he wasn't ready to play, but you have to be able to make a physical play back there. Like the last option should be have this guy get a shot on goal from behind the net, right? I don't know. I would have liked to have seen something different there. I saw guys kind of calling out Braun a little bit. I think that was the goal. They wanted him to lift the defender's stick, but in my opinion, that play should have never happened, know, and it kind of set the tone, like you mentioned, for the rest of the game. The Flyers are playing catch up almost instantly. Joel Farabee scores later on in the period, and in typical Flyer fashion, we've seen this way too many times, not just this year, but over the years. They give up a goal. A minute and a half later, they're right back in the same spot, down a goal, heading into the second. Overall, disappointed with the first period play. They were talking pregame. Flyers need to come out ready to play, get their legs under them, and start differently than they have in the last two games, and we didn't see that.
No, and I believe the second goal wasn't quite the same. It was very similar. It originated from behind the net, and the second goal to me was more egregious since it happened earlier in the game. That might have been the Braun moment that you're talking about.
Could be.
Braun was weak with the stick on his guy. Provorov was out of position with his guy, and it was a wraparound tic-tac-toe type pass where the guy just puts it over Jones's glove. And the first goal, you could even say Jones was a little slow with the post to post play with his pads. It was too easy of a wraparound.
Yeah,
So
it can't go in.
The whole team was asleep. But yeah, so the first two goals really. And listen, when you start hearing it wasn't Jones. It was Boucher, and then an intermission, Al Morgani talking. Listen, these guys are not afraid to be critical anymore of this team, and they're letting you know the issues at hand. So, and then just the rest of the game, I was just observing losing puck battles along the boards.
There was a lot of losing last night, that's for sure.
Yeah, and listen, this was the one of the three games. This was the game that we were least outplayed, outshot. And it's amazing is the one thing that we are consistently good at, and I would like it to come to fruition in some wins, is we are an excellent face-off team.
Yeah.
But as mentioned last night, we're just not excellent when we have an offensive draw on the power play.
It's like they don't know what to do with the puck. It's pretty crazy to watch. You know?
That's the one face-off they're guaranteed to lose is an offensive draw on the power play.
It seems like almost every time.
Because they cannot set up a power play, so the least they need to get that draw to get their initial setup going. But it's crazy. So essentially, despite the obviously we're talking about a consistent play because other than the nice game they had against the Devils, and again because of this hiatus, I'm drawing a blank, and I should have had it in my notes. They've had two really good games where I was like, oh my God, are they turning into a good hockey team? Are they finally buying into Mike Yo's system? One game was the Devils. Help me out with another great game they had recently.
I got
you. It wasn't the Knights. The Knights, they stole that game.
Yeah, so they had the Knights, the Coyotes, the Devils, where they looked really well.
Yeah.
I think they came out. They looked really good in the first period against the Senators and kind of allowed them to come back and wound up winning in overtime. Maybe that's what you're thinking. Maybe that, like in your mind, it's like, oh, they got the win. It was the whole game they played good, but it was really just one period. Because I'm looking back and nothing
All
else
right.
really stands out here.
Yeah. So other than the Devils game, you're thinking, when is this team going to click? When's it going to happen? And obviously they're playing better under Yo, and the players that you referenced that are clearly have a piano off their back now that Vigneault's gone. JVR, Oscar Lindblom, Travis Sanheim. Those are the three players that stand out.
Yeah.
For me, as players that must have a sigh of relief that the former coach is gone.
They're fun to watch. Oscar Lindblom, he's just playing his own game. It's I don't want to say he's playing carefree hockey, but he's doing his thing. And I believe Yo may have mentioned that in a press conference. I can't recall exactly what he said, but these are individuals, and you want to see them play their own game while playing within whatever system you're implementing. Or if you take away the individuality, you're asking them to be robots, right? And what's the fun part about playing sports? It's being yourself, putting your own flair on things. And I think when you ask a player to go out there and be yourself, you're asking them to go have fun. And what's crazy is when a team's having fun, they're successful. And it kind of just keeps going like a circle. If you're having fun, you're successful. If you're successful, you're probably having fun. And I think, listen, I liked AV as a man. I think he was a good guy, but maybe not the coach for these players. And I know a lot of fans are tired of hearing that because we're going through coaches every 3 years. But sometimes it is what it is. They have to find the right guy for these players. Another guy who, didn't have a great game last night, but's been showing up on the score sheet pretty often since Mike Yo took over, was Travis Konechny. And I'm particularly hard on Konechny because we've seen how good he can be a couple years ago. And under Alain Vigneault, he kind of regressed each year. And where my frustration comes, we know how good he can be. Why aren't we seeing it? So I get a little frustrated there because that's a guy they count on for offense. He's got 5 goals in 32 games. That's can't be acceptable. You mentioned Sanheim. I feel like he's blossoming right in front of our eyes.
Absolutely.
He's playing better and better every night. And, how much is that him and the coaches, and how much of it has to do with playing with a consistent D partner, not even Ristolainen, because I don't want to give credit to Ristolainen for saying Sanheim's playing great, but just having a consistent partner, allowing him to play his game, and Keith Yandel mentioned he's going to be a superstar. I don't know about that, but I'll take a very, very good player as your second line D pairing.
No, there's definitely a correlation between the firing and Sanheim's coming out party.
Yeah,
Listen,
for sure.
I'll go on record. I was critical of the kid. I knew he had the talent. I knew he was a beautiful skater, but essentially for 2 years, he's been unnoticeable. And sometimes unnoticeable is good, but in this case, it hasn't been good. He was this far behind Phil Myers in the way he was playing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And he was regressing big time with Vigneault. I don't know what was going on in the locker room. I don't know what kind of things were put in his ear about you got to do this, you got to do that. But he is playing with a sense of freedom now. And it all goes to confidence. If a coach is saying you can do this and not get destroyed if something goes wrong, it gives you a total peace of mind. And real fast, getting back to Konechny, I see exactly what you see. He's still setting up plays nicely. He's still an energy bug out there. I just think and hope a JVR moment will take place with him where he's clinching that stick really tight. And once that first goal goes in,
it's got to happen.
Yeah, because I mean, you said 5 goals in 35 games. If he scored 5 goals in the first handful of games, so he's been in a big time drought.
I think he's been stuck on 99 career goals for over a month. So maybe you're right. Once he gets that goal 100, maybe
give the kid an empty netter, for crying out loud.
Man, it's like they got to be winning in a game to get an empty netter.
Like when exactly right. Like get a lead, get him an empty netter. It's like when I played baseball. If you were in like an 0 for 10 slump and you got a dribbler or a swinging bunt, ooh, I feel relaxed now. And your next
the monkey's off your back.
Yeah, that's all he needs. All he needs. All right. So I while you were discussing, I threw up the next question. So despite the crazy play or inconsistent play, they've garnered 12 points out of a potential 16 in their last 8 games. Not awful considering the sloppy play. So with that being the case, what would you say are positive changes you've seen? Let's say beyond the 3 games since Yo's taken over. And what deficiencies do you still see that exist?
So I'll get the bad stuff out of the way first. The deficiencies, obviously, they have a hard time controlling the play throughout a game. They have a hard time getting out of their own zone. They have a hard time getting through the neutral zone quickly. Once in the offensive zone, they still have a hard time maintaining offensive zone possession, which, in my opinion, I think is key to winning hockey games. If you're controlling the play in the offensive zone, you're not playing defense, and so you're not getting scored on. And it's more fun playing offense. It's less draining. It's less taxing. You're not chasing play. You're not chasing the puck, and you have more energy at the end of the game. Some of the positives I'm seeing, it's more so individual play than it is overall team play. Some of the guys we mentioned, JVR is kind of on the heater right now. Oscar Lindblom, Konechny, I believe. I'm not sure if he had an assist last night. I don't think he did. But heading into last night, 8 assists in his last 8 games. Lindblom, I think, had 6 points in his last 5, something like that. Travis Sanheim. So that's kind of what I'm doing these days. I'm looking for individual play because I just don't think it's going to happen as a team this year. Morgan Frost, I'm looking for positive things. And Claude Giroux, man. I feel like I don't want to say he gets overshadowed because that's not the right term, but the guy has just been doing his thing all year once again. I think there was a stretch of 4 games this year where he didn't record a point. And like every other game, he's recorded a point. Like, I know he's in second place now in all-time points, and he's breaking the power play record points total. But man, this guy, if he had some, I don't, I feel like it's kind of a cop out saying it, but if he had major talent around him or in the lineup, could you imagine the point totals he'd have today? I mean,
No,
throughout his career, like when we weren't talking about Andy McDonald or Brandon Manning, Dale Weiss, those kind of guys, could you? He might be a point per game player, and we might be talking about 1,000 points instead of 885 right now. You know?
no, I agree. I've never gotten the Giroux bashing. My only issue with Giroux was his contract, and if the team was going south, I'm all about a rebuild, retool. Like, if you're not going to go anywhere, you can't have guys around for 6 years making $8 million a year.
Yeah,
So
a lot of stuff didn't.
So I never doubted his desire or his leadership or his play. And in fact, we've had some guests on our show, and I don't want to mention anyone's names because it was kind of done in confidence, that said that the players hated Hackstall so much that they played for G.
Wow.
So when I heard that, I'm like, oh, so Dale Weiss's story about, they needed new leadership, yada, yada, yada. To me, that sounded like a better hockey player that just didn't enjoy his time.
It could have been, right?
But, the team played for G was the theme I got from two different guests.
Huh.
So they love the guy. So now, does loving the guy make him a great captain? Because maybe loving the guy also allows for team complacency. Maybe there is some of that going on. I don't know, but I agree with you 1,000% that he's obviously he had Voracek for years, but he's not playing with Draisaitl on his wing by any means.
Right.
So yeah, the guy is an underappreciated talent that gets hammered unfairly, in my opinion.
I think if he walks during the offseason or if he gets moved at the trade deadline, that's going to be a void that I'm not sure the Flyers can fill right now. Like they might have to go outside the organization to look for a player like that. It's one of those things where you don't realize what you have until it's gone. Whereas I think a lot of Flyers fans realize what we have, and hey, the day's coming. The trade deadline's coming, and the Flyers aren't in the playoffs right now, or even if they hang on to them, off season's coming. Giroux's unsigned. The day's coming. It could be potentially coming where Claude Giroux is no longer a Flyer, and that's going to be a sad day. Outstanding player, outstanding playing career here, and hey, maybe they turn it around. Maybe they make the playoffs and they go on and give him a long playoff run. I don't want to say a cup because that's pretty much unattainable at this point, but maybe they win a round for him or something.
Well, one can only hope. And again, it's all in his boat because he has the no movement clause. So we shall see. And the other thing you have to ask yourself, with Couturier having such a down year, who is captain worthy on this team?
Great question.
I mean, to me, Lawton looks like a captain, but the way they've treated him by making him a third and fourth liner over the years, and that's another topic that's been addressed on our show behind the scenes, that Lawton is a player that's been misused and put on the wrong lines over the years, that he's got more skill than we realize. And he has leadership qualities, but can you make him the captain? No. Couturier is the logical choice, but look what he's done after his big contract.
Yeah. And you're kind of it's weird. You're kind of hoping that he's hurt, right? Like, I don't know, man. Like, how do you sign a deal like that? And he's got 17 points in 29 games, just 6 goals. He's playing 20 minutes a night. I don't know. Maybe he's been playing hurt. I attribute a lot of his play to the team's overall play. Chasing the game, and by the time that third period comes, or by the time 10 minutes left in the third comes, I mean, you have to be winded. You're chasing the game the entire game, getting absolutely dominated. It's got to take a toll, not just on your body, but on your mind. It's like, oh man, here we are again. But I don't know. You would think before the season he was the logical choice for captain, but if you look up and down the lineup, Ivan Provorov, I don't think too many people would be happy about that right now, right?
No.
Kevin Hayes, I don't know.
It's interesting. So that, yeah, we have I guess bigger topics for different times to discuss, but yeah, it's an interesting outlook if you really want to delve into it. So I guess this kind of correlates to what we're discussing, and it's a hypothetical, so bear with me.
Sure.
So hypothetically, and because we know injuries will always occur and COVID is real. So any team in the National Hockey League, you can't say when they have their full roster, because that's just not going to happen at this stage of the season. But hypothetically, all our key players are back, COVID's at bay, and we have the lineup that we want. Is this team still going to be inconsistent with inexplicable sluggish starts, or will they finally be competitive?
I think they'll still be sluggish. Yeah, I think they need a coach that can play to these players' strengths. I mean, they're not a very physical team. They're not a very fast team. Skill-wise, I mean, they have players that have skill. Is it high-end skill? I don't think so. So you have a team that's, I don't want to call them not very skilled, but they're sort of averaged, a little above average skill-wise. So now you have a team that's not very physical. You have a team that's not fast, and they're just above average skill-wise. How much does a coach fix that? I don't know. I'm not sure, because I like to be positive, Dan.
I know.
And when you look at this team and you look at the roster, and you look at what a good team is, right? You look at some of these good teams. Think about Carolina. I mean, if you're in the South right now, Southeast, you're watching some of the best hockey in the NHL. You got the Lightning, you got the Panthers, you got the Hurricanes. Like, well, I don't know what the hell's going on down there, but why can't we do that in Philadelphia? Right? Like, they have the coach. Like, you think about Carolina, Rod Brindamore, great guy, great coach, great motivator. You look at Florida. I mean, they had Quenneville down there. We all know what happened with that. Tampa Bay with John Cooper. Why can't the Flyers do that? Why don't they? I mean, so I like to use Carolina as the example. I mean, you think of star players. I don't know if you think of Sebastian Aho right away or Andrei Svechnikov right away, but they have a team full of above average skill players that work their asses off. Why can't the Flyers go find these guys? They've made subtle moves throughout the year. I don't know if a lot of hockey fans have Vinny Trocheck up on a pedestal, but the guy works his ass off, wins in the faceoff dot, and he's a hell of a player, a great second or third line center. They made a subtle move with the Rangers a couple years ago, bringing in Brady Shea. The Rangers had to move him because they weren't going to let him go for nothing. The guy's a decent second pair defenseman. Those are the moves that you need to be looking to make. You need to be bringing in players that work hard. Look, I know a lot of fans these days want 20-goal scorers on all four lines. And you look at the Flyers roster, it's all skill players, that can't play the same way that the Carolina Hurricanes play. Does that make sense?
No, it does. And my thing was, and if you remember the beginning of the year, and I caught one of your shows when Jason Martinez was on it, and my thing for the past 2 years is we don't have elite skill. We have no one with hands. And by hands, and I'll tie the Martinez thing in. The thing with the hands is visualize a guy taking the puck from blue line to blue line. Do we have anyone backing up the other team's defense? Do you remember that one goal that Farabee scored where he dangled between his legs and he kind of went end to end and he scored?
Mm-hmm.
I was like shocked.
Yeah.
I was like shocked. Like a Flyer player just did that. I was literally shocked. Yeah. So we don't have now not every team has a Matthew Barzal, and obviously McDavid and Matthews, they're far and few between, but we don't have a guy or guys that can just, even on the power play, the second a player gets pressured along the sideboards, they give up the puck.
Yeah.
We have no one with hands on this team. Drew has hands, but he doesn't have the foot speed anymore. Hayes is not the same player he was because of his injury. He could dangle the puck and play with the puck a little bit. But that to your point is definitely an issue. But to what Jason was saying, when the Flyers were playing well, is they had very good gap control, quick passes out of the neutral zone, bing, bang, boom, and that's what generates your team speed. They look like a faster team. Yep. And Jason said, if you were to have all the players go from end line to end line in a race, they wouldn't appear to be a fast team, but they play fast when you make good gap control passing. And that's what they were doing at the onset of the year. And then you say to yourself, they were winning games with that. And then you say, wow, we don't have any dynamic players, but boy, do we have three good balanced lines.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of what you were referring to with the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yep.
And somehow that disappears. Why? What message got lost where they went from that beginning of the year team that had three balanced lines, kind of the way the team looked during the bubble time, to the team that was last March and happening now? Why do they lose that message and go from a well-balanced three-line team to this inconsistent team? That is the thing that's driving me crazy more than anything, is when they show it, it proves that they have it, but I don't know why the message got lost or gets lost.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be an accountability thing. It's got to be. I don't want to say that. I don't like to call players soft or things like that, because who knows what's being said or who knows who's doing what. But from the outside looking in, the guys need to hold each other accountable. If a player's, if his game's not up to par, you need to have a conversation with him. It needs to come from somebody like JVR, Giroux, Couturier. I mean, those are the old guys, right? Those are the core, or whoever we want to talk about. Sometimes and tell me if I'm wrong. If a guy like, I'm thinking back last year, if a guy like Jake Voracek comes up to you and tells you need to play better, what goes on in your mind? Like, here's a guy that shows up once every 4 or 5 games coming to me, telling me I have to play better. Guy like JVR who scores a goal once every 10, 15 games, telling me I got to play better. Like, I think what I'm saying is the leaders on the team also need to be producing on the ice. And I wonder sometimes if it makes it hard for these guys that, I got to go tell this guy that he needs to be better, and here I am with 7 goals in 32 games. Do you know what I mean?
No, I know exactly what you mean. There's nobody that can back up what they're preaching is essentially your point. And yeah, it would be nice to have a Chris Pronger, Kimmo Timonen type guy on this roster, a KG, Wiley vet with a pedigree, but we don't have that. All right. We're supposed to be talking about these 3 games, right?
We could keep going, man.
No, but I told you that we'd have some organic flow off these topics. So a hard topic to address because of the history that's involved and the fact that he's known as a good guy, a great locker room guy. But this Keith Yandle streak is ultimately hurting this club. He is not playing good hockey. He's not doing what he's here for. So what do you do? Do you have to let him? And the thing is, you can't even say, okay, once you make it to your magical number, we're finally going to sit you, because Phil Kessel's 20 games behind you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What do they do with this scenario? They got a pickle. So
if I'm the head coach, playing him till he breaks the streak, and then I'm having a conversation with him. Hey, we did you a favor playing it to the streak. If how you're playing continues, we're going to have to sit you, unfortunately. And you need to work it out with him, because he may not want to sit. So then it becomes, okay, well, we'll release you. This way your streak remains intact, but we can't keep plugging you into this lineup. I mean, he's, people don't, if you want to put stock into a plus minus, I do. If you play defense, it's minus 17 in 32 games, no goals, averaging 15 minutes a night, and sometimes not even that. Like, he is bad. Like, I think we were hoping, I don't want to say people were expecting, but I think we were hoping for a little bit better than that. Like, we were hoping for somebody that could, boost the power play and hold down a third line spot with Justin Braun. And maybe that's some of what it is. You look at who he's paired with, Kevin Connaughton or Nick Seeler. I mean, these are borderline NHL, AHL players. Maybe, and it sucks to talk about this because Ellis has been out so long.
Yeah.
Maybe when Ellis comes back, pop him back up there with Provorov, give Keith Yandel a defensive partner like Justin Braun, who seemingly can play well with anybody, and see what happens. I would play him till he got the streak, because who are you going to play? You're going to do Connaughton and Sealer, or guys want to call up York or Zamula. Well, what's that going to do for them playing with Nick Sealer or Kevin Connaughton? Like, do we still want to do that? Like, do you want to pair Ivan Provorov with Andy McDonald again, or Travis Sanheim with, I mean, I don't know who, Brandon Manning? Like, don't you want to start these kids off on the right foot and wait for everything just to come back? Go with Provorov, Ellis, and then if you want to bring up York or Zamula, you can pair them with Justin Braun. A steady presence that's going to help guide these kids, help them make the right choices, right decisions. And as little mistakes as possible. I think if you pair them with a Sealer or a Connaughton, you're basically handing them a ticking time bomb,
Right. You're setting up for a lack of confidence as they enter their careers. No, I totally get that. It's just that from a pure hockey production point of view, it's embarrassing. That if this guy was just a guy that has missed games periodically and the streak was not an issue, there'd be countless times where he would be benched this year, and that's a shame.
That's for sure. It's been that bad to where we're questioning, or his play's been that bad to where guys want to bench him 9-10 games before he breaks the record. That says a lot. That's how bad it's been.
Right, and I didn't want to be that guy. But when you're like turning pucks over on the power play, which is your specialty, and giving up shorthanded goals,
then I totally get it too.
You're a liability.
Yeah.
But I guess if there's any saving grace, he's supposedly a wonderful guy in the locker room and a great dude. So hopefully they're getting that out of him.
Hopefully, they got to be getting some, because they're not getting power play production.
All right. So last night we had a fun event. We had the Winter Classic. The coldest Winter Classic by far. Now, technically, the Heritage game in 2003 wasn't a Winter Classic, but it was still an outdoor game, and that was a 0-degree game. This was the kind of game where everyone had frozen eyebrows, frozen beards, and water bottles were not squirting out the water. If you saw the Kiprasov moment where he trying to get the water out of the bottle. But it was an entertaining game, and I don't know how much you watched, but Jordan Kyrou was absolutely brilliant. And former Flyer Mike Hartman scored his 15th goal last night.
Does he have 15?
15 goals. He's on the number one line with them, and he's an integral part of their team. If you recall, ladies and gentlemen, he was the guy we got for Wayne Simmons. Played 16 games and unloaded him in the offseason for Tyler Pitlick. And now he's a 15-goal scorer for a pretty solid Minnesota team. But that aside, it was a very interesting game watching guys play old school hockey like they did in their youth in minus 10-degree weather.
Could you imagine being in the stands for that game?
At least the people in this, they were definitely crazy, and they were bundled up to the wazoo. My question is, do the players have different gear? I mean, layers of clothing underneath their traditional padding? I wonder how different they're.
I would assume if it was me, I'd be cracking up those hand warmers and just putting them all over my body.
Yeah, well, they had heat on the bench, but the coaches had their varsity jackets and a hat on. It wasn't like anything special,
Yeah, and they looked okay back there.
I don't know. I know Keith Jones was supposedly miserable.
I would have been. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
We're not talking about 5-10 degrees. Like when it's 20 degrees, I'm miserable. When I got to go outside and go to work, I'm like, oh my God, why don't I live in Florida right now? Could you imagine -10?
But when I played hockey in my youth, you went with a very thin sock, or some guys went barefoot in their skates. I don't know what you do to keep your feet warm.
No,
in a game like that. And
God
forbid you take a shot off the foot in a game like that. But it was a very exciting game. It was like 5-1, 6-2. Then it became 6-4. Minnesota Wild made it interesting. But Jordan Kyrou was absolutely brilliant for the Blues. Number 25, a center, 6'1" center, coming into his own this year. Scored 2 goals. He's up to 12. It's every once in a while when you watch a game and you see a player that just blatantly has a neon sign flashing on their back. Look at me. That's the kind of game he had.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't catch that game, I encourage you to watch a replay of it. Watch how well Jordan Kyrou played, and just watch how these guys had to play in such unbelievable elements of -10 degrees. All right. So that was the Winter Classic. And now I'm going to pop on our screen our upcoming games. So how well can you see the screen there, Jim?
Perfectly.
Okay. Yeah. On my end, it's a little blurry. So the upcoming games we have are Tuesday, we're at Anaheim, finishing up the West Coast trip. Then it's Thursday, home versus Pittsburgh, and Saturday, home versus San Jose. So perhaps a tad of revenge there. Now, my concern is, I know the NHL isn't quite like the NBA, but what always happens at the end of a long road trip for the the team that's ready to go home? They always get their asses kicked in that last game, right? So, and Anaheim's a very good team this year.
Oh, yeah.
They're up there with St. Louis and Minnesota. So what I usually do with the guests on our show is we project points for the week. So the games we're projecting are at Anaheim, home against Pittsburgh, and home against San Jose. With this wonderfully inconsistent team, what do you see as our points this week?
So there's two sides to me. There's the realist and there's the fan. I guess the realist is the guy who covers the team, and the fan is the guy who, wants all the positive things to happen. So this game against Anaheim, it's going to be a tough game. They got some skill players. Trevor Zegras, Troy Terry's having an outstanding year. Ryan Getzlaf's kind of having a renaissance season. He's not done yet. Solid goaltending. Stolarz is playing very well as the backup out there.
Still the goalie.
Hey, if they can get another game to OT and potentially somehow get 2 points or sneak out a point, that would be ideal. Now, the realist in me says they're probably going to lose in regulation to Anaheim. As you mentioned, it's the last game of the road trip. They're ready to go home. And sometimes that's just how it goes. I mean, we've seen the way that they've been playing. Like I can lie to myself all I want and say, maybe they'll do this, they'll sneak out 2 points. But if you're watching this team play, they're probably going to lose in regulation.
Yeah, Nick Descaltosti, he's like a savant with predicting the games. He's like the master of the sports ebb and flow. And he'll always say, "Oh, they're gonna beat Anaheim, and then they'll come out and steal a point versus Pittsburgh, and then they'll lose to San Jose." Like he'll like nail it.
Huh.
Like he just knows the psychology of the schedule and the ebb and flow, and he's been really good. But I agree with you. I see a loss at Anaheim. You would think they would come out with juice against Pittsburgh. But I just never know what to expect in games like that.
Yeah.
So
that's the fan in you.
Yeah. I would hope an overtime something in that game. And then I think we get our revenge with a win with San Jose. So I'm going to say loss 1 point, I think an overtime loss or shootout to Pittsburgh, and a win versus San Jose. So for 3 points.
Yeah, and I would say that that's 1-1-1 is decent for that schedule.
And look ahead.
They need all the points they can get because I don't see many points that next week.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean?
I know it's a scary looking schedule coming up, and
I mean,
Islanders are playing well again.
Yeah, maybe that's how they ought to be looking at this week. I mean, we need at least 5 out of 6 points because we ain't getting too many next week, boys.
They have to turn their corner sometime, and if that team that we referenced when you had Jason Martinez on your show, when they were a solid at the beginning of the year, they had no first line. Their first 3 lines were equal to each other. That if we can get that hockey team back that somehow bought in for a moment,
yeah,
we can be a solid hockey team.
You would like to think so, right?
But I don't know.
Maybe they need Ryan Ellis back too. I mean, the guy's played 4 games, 5
No,
games.
they do, and
Insane.
he's day to day at this point. I saw January 7th or something to that effect. Could be his.
So maybe this week coming up, maybe.
But who knows?
Yeah.
I don't want the guy to come back just to get hurt again. He's got to be 100%.
Yeah,
But make no mistake about it. He's a difference maker. He's a professional defenseman. He's the guy that we're talking about. He's the kind of guy that probably could get in your face in the locker room.
Yeah.
And have some credibility to what he says.
For sure.
And that's what you need. But right now he can't say much because he's not in the lineup.
Yep.
But Jim, I just want to thank you big time. You were as advertised. I
appreciate that.
No, it was a smooth listen. We've done this for 57 minutes. It felt like 20 minutes.
Yeah, I could keep going. We could go as long as you want, man.
Right. So let me just try to get rid of that schedule. Here we're back. So, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Jim Icavone, I am Dan Green. We are Flyer and Ice. Again, check us out on YouTube. Tap that bell. Come out to Steam Pub and Restaurant in Southampton this Tuesday from 7 to 8:30. The whole team's going to be there. It's going to be a packed house. It'll be so much fun. Big things are coming with Heat Ratio Sports. A lot of new talent has joined our crew. And as always, we'll collaborate with other great networks as well. So on behalf of Jim, I am Dan Green. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Happy New Year once again. And have a great week of hockey. And until next time, be well and stay safe, everybody.